Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. Huge day of racing at the Big A on Saturday. Several graded stakes topped by the closing race on the card. Let's throw up the field for the 10th. It's the Grade 2 $500,000 Cigar Mile. And Mike, this is a big field. It looks like a good betting race. We've got a couple of also-rans from the Breeders' Cup here, as well as some horses who prepped in the 49ers, sort of the local race leading up to the Cigar Mile. So it's an eclectic bunch, and there should be some speed.
Yeah, I think that's probably a key point, Dan. It feels like there's plenty of pace signed on in this race, so maybe they'll go early and set it up for somebody. Personally, I don't see a standout in this field. That's sort of reflected in this morning line, Dan. A lot of different horses can win here.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector. Timeform US agrees with our assessment. This pace should be run quickly. The 12 pipeline is very, very fast, and he's cutting back to a distance he'll appreciate. We haven't seen the best pipeline in a while, but he is still quick from the gate. I wonder if the one Coastal Mission is fast enough to go after him, because he's quick and he's in razor sharp form.
Yeah, that horse has speed. There are several other horses in here who could try to get forward in this race, Dan. Certainly pipeline. Post 12, no bargain for him. He's a fast horse. If they decide they want to go to the front, they don't have to do that, but they certainly could try it. The more I looked at this race, though, I just felt like it would be competitive up front.
The 4 Cascades, the 8 Awfully Cool. These are horses that also have speed. So this pace should be pretty solid. And one of the pace horses is the number 1 Coastal Mission. This is the West Virginia Flash. He's won 6 consecutive races, including this effort in the West Virginia Breeders' Classic, going a 3-turn mile and an eighth. And Arnaldo Boca Chica at 1-5. Took a long look back to see where the competition was, and there was none. Coastal Mission won by $1 million. He got a 95 buyer, and from a figure standpoint, he's right there with the top horses in this race.
He's got those Charlestown horses over a barrel, Dan. They just can't go with him. You said he's won 6 in a row. He's won 9 of his last 10. The only time he lost when they shipped him out of Charlestown and tried a stakes race in Maryland, and he got beat that day. It's obviously a tough ask for him. He deserves a chance in this race, though. He's in razor sharp form right now. He's got speed. He's got the rail. The figures say he can compete with these horses if things go his way. I think it's a tough spot for him, but he's a really cool horse.
Ever So Mischievous goes out for trainer Brad Cox. This is a very lightly raced 3-year-old, but he's 2 heads away from being undefeated from 6 lifetime starts. Here's his most recent effort. This is the Grade 2 49er, the local prep for the Cigar Mile. And he had to get into it at about the 5/16ths from in between horses when the horse to his outside sort of emerged to his outside. And Ever So Mischievous digs in and just finds a little bit more down to the wire. You see the gray horse on the outside. That's Dr. Ardido. He's going to rally up for second.
Yeah, this is a pretty game. He earned this victory, Dan. There's no two ways about it. Now, Aqueduct, who's in between there at the end of 3, he didn't have a great trip in this race. He ran well. Dr. Ardido did what he always does, and he rallied strongly from the back, and he got up for second. But this horse earned that victory. That pace was not slow. He was forced to go a little bit early in there. It looked like Aqueduct had dead aim on him. He denied that horse. Dr. Ardido made his run. He did not let that horse really get there. This horse ran really well last time. He's a 3-year-old. He's made no mistakes so far. It feels like this pace will be fast again, and maybe that works against him, Dan. I found it pretty hard to knock him, though. He just seems like a good horse to me.
Senor Buscador is up next. He's 7-2 on David Aragona's morning line. This horse is a graded stakes winner around a 1-turn mile. He's a graded stakes winner around 2 turns. He tried the Breeders' Cup Classic last time out. It was way too tough for him, and I think 1.25 miles is too far. I always thought going into this year that Senor Buscador was at his best as sort of a late-running miler, and he's going to get an opportunity to do that for the first time since he won the Aqueduct at Churchill Downs over a 1-turn mile in 2022.
Yeah, exactly. And it's worth going back to that Aqueduct, Dan. If you've forgotten about it, go back and watch it. This horse was on the move early that day, right up to contention around the turn even, and then put the race away late. He ran really, really well that day. And I'm sort of with you. It's shorter, a little bit shorter is better for this horse. He can go longer, but he's a little bit better going shorter. Look at his 2 wins this year. They're both mile and a 16th races. Just wants to go a little bit shorter. He's going to have pace in front of him here.
Just outrun early in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He tried to get into it with a 4-wide move on the backstretch, but those horses are too good for him. Let's talk a little bit about one of the Chad Brown trained runners. That's the 4 Cascades, 20-1 on the morning line. He's still eligible for a now winners of 2 life, but he's coming into this race off a good second in a first-level allowance at Belmont at the Big A. This is his first race off an 11-month layoff, Mike. He's on the lead. He's going to hold second. Chad must really like this horse. I mean, again, you could run them in an allowance race. He's going to run him in the Cigar in his 4th lifetime start.
I know. It's very interesting that he's in here. I think this horse is good, Dan. So I'm not shocked that he's running here. I just wonder if this is really the right race. He ran really well in here. That's a good horse that closes him down right at the end. A very expensive horse for Shug McGahee, who's on a real roll right now. This horse ran great in there when you consider the layoff and you consider that he had to use his speed and it was a wet track as well. His first 2 starts were good. He ran really well last time. Man, I really like this horse, Dan. I just don't know if I like him in this race.
Chad also has the 5 Dr. Ardido, a horse that really loves Aqueduct. 7 starts, 5 wins, 2 seconds over the Aqueduct main track. We saw him finish a late running second in the 49er, but that's him. He has no early speed whatsoever. He's going to be outpaced early, and he's going to come running late. He should get some pace to run at. I've never really thought of Dr. Ardido as a horse that was going to win the Cigar Mile, but if there ever was a Cigar Mile he was going to win, maybe this is it.
There you go. I couldn't have put it any better myself, Dan. He's just a really cool horse anyway. You know he's going to show up and do what he did in the 49er last time. It was a nice bounce back effort for him too, because they sort of took him out of town 2 back on a wet track at Parks, and he just didn't fire at all. But he bounced back really well last time. Like you, I mean, he'll probably be a fair price in here, so I'm not going to argue with him. I didn't really want to bet him in this spot, but I think he's going to be running at the end. I think he's going to be around.
High Oak, if he runs in here, he's sort of questionable right now for trainer Bill Mott. He's another horse that could come with a little bit of a late kick. He was second in the Bold Ruler last time out against Durante. You got the jump on him turning into the stretch. It's hard to believe, but High Oak still hasn't won a race since the Saratoga Special of 2021. It's interesting that Mott has kept him sprinting. Now they'll get him out to a 1-turn mile. His buyers are a little bit light.
They're light. It's a tough spot for him. He's just one of those horses, Dan, who it feels, if nothing else, you want to give him credit. This is his most recent start, the Bold Ruler, where he's off the pace. Durante, who wins it, is just in razor sharp form right now. And High Oak will get out into the clear and he'll rally. He runs fine in here. It's nice that he's just sort of rounded back into form, because there was a point after that spill in the Fountain of Youth early as a 3-0 that just kind of felt like his career was over. But he's starting to get back into form now. Now he's got a grade 1 placing and a grade 3 placing this year. I still think he's in pretty tough against this field.
3 Technique looked like he was getting back to his old self during the spring and into the summer. He won a couple of races, including a week edition of the Neyrood at Belmont going 7/8. He missed Saratoga, returned with an okay performance in the ACAC. I thought that race was a little bit better than it looked. He was probably overmatched in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and he is way out of it in the early part of that race.
Yeah, I don't really care about that last race. I'm not sure that 6 furlongs is perfect for him, and certainly the Breeders' Cup Sprint isn't perfect for him. But they took their shot in there. Whatever. The 1-turn mile is better for him. I want to go back to the point you made prior to that, though, Dan. That ACAC 2 starts back, I think that's a deceptively good performance. There was no pace in that race, and he actually ran really well trying to close ground at the end. I thought that was an underrated performance. His Neyrood was also really good, as you've already pointed out. It wasn't a good field, but we've seen this horse hold up against horses like this in the past. The 1-turn mile is good for him. Pace in front of him is really good for him. He's very interesting if he's around 10-1.
A horse in very good form is the 8 Awfully Cool, a horse that could be part of the pace picture. If you look at his PPs, he really likes to be up there on the lead, and it's sort of questionable whether he's quick enough to get it. I think they'll try. Here's his most recent race. This is a listed stake at Parks going a 2-turn mile. He faced a pretty good field in here. Nimitz Class has had a good season in the Mid-Atlantic. Maybe this race was one too many after a hard campaign. King Kumbale came back to win a stakes race at Laurel. Awfully Cool just was able to control the slowest of slow fractions in here, Mike, and I think that helped contribute to the victory.
Yeah, had all the best of it in this race, and he really took advantage. There are a few horses in here, Dan, who sort of look like Awfully Cool. They're fine. They've got races that suggest that they deserve a shot in a race like this, and they're going to sort of step up here off of maybe the best races of their lives. I think that's the case with Awfully Cool. I don't expect him to win here. His last 2 races are good.
Castle Chaos is taking a big step up in class. This will be his first stakes appearance after scoring a second-level allowance over course and trip last month. He showed some nice tactical speed in this race to sit just off of the pace, and they tried to extend in the second quarter. I like that Castle Chaos wasn't outpaced. He's going to grind these horses down. Nice to see him get back to the winner's circle. He's going to have to do better.
He is. He got a really good trip in this race, and he gets the job done going the mile here along late. It's another horse who just ran probably the race of his life, so they'll step him up and try a tougher spot with him. almost feels like that was the day to bet him, though, Dan, because two back, he had real trouble at the start. He wound up way too far out of it and actually ran through the stretch to get third.
A huge fan of Accretive last year after he ran second in the Amsterdam. Couldn't wait to bet him in the Jerkins. It didn't work out. His stablemate, Jack Christopher, was too good for him. And then Accretive disappeared for 11 months, so it's obvious he's had his share of issues. His most recent start, we saw him in between horses in the end in the 49er. I don't know, Mike. I thought he had a pretty good setup in that race from mid-pack. Maybe it wasn't the greatest trip in the world, kind of trying to get into it with a wide early bid before flattening out. Maybe they'll sit back and make one run this time because they've really tried to get close to the pace with him this year.
Yeah, I could go either way on that last start, because you're right. I mean, all in all, he was away from the pace, and maybe that helped him a little bit. The flip side of that is, boy, he didn't get out of the gate well. He actually was last from the gate in there. Then he had to recover. And while he was recovering, Irad just kept him wide. I mean, on the outside all the way, wide around the turn. He made a big move to get up to ever so mischievous at the top of the stretch. And they just couldn't quite get by him. But all in all, I don't know. I thought he ran well there. His Vosburg two back, it's fine. It was a really slow pace that he was controlling, and it wasn't as close as it kind of looks on paper there. Cody's Wish was much the best in there, but it was still a fine performance. This horse is good, Dan. He could easily bounce back here. The best thing about him in this spot, as far as I'm concerned, he can get any kind of a trip, and he's not going to be the favorite this time.
And a mile hits him right between the eyes. The 11 is Hoist the Gold, who received a beautiful trip and ride from Johnny Velasquez when he won the Phoenix 2 starts back. He broke pretty sharp that day, was down inside. Johnny V was patient, eventually got him off the rail and into the 3-path turning for home, and he was able to grind it out over a pretty decent runner in Nakatomi. The Breeders' Cup Sprint was too tough for him, but it was kind of odd watching that race. He was in between horses. He didn't fire. And then at the end, he gallops out just about past everybody.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I don't know what to really say about this horse, Dan. I get that he's very consistent and he's got a race or two that would give him a real chance in here. I happen not to be his biggest fan, and more than anything else, I think he's a sprinter. I don't think stretching out to a mile helps him at all.
I like him more than you do, but I agree with your take. I'm not sure a mile is really what he wants, but he's a horse that doesn't need to be on the lead. He'll probably get a good setup, and we'll find out how good he is. You're in that big figure 2 starts back going 3/4. Pipeline is the 12. He's another horse. I've always liked him. He's had his share of issues. He's now with a very good trainer in Cherie DeVoe, and there's a way to look at Pipeline, and if you're a very forgiving handicapper, you can draw a line through his last 4 races. The Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, where he was tattooed by Cody's Wish. He comes off a long layoff. That's the race that worries me the most, because I'm assuming Chad probably had him ready off the long layoff at Saratoga, and he wasn't good that day, although he got hooked on the lead. The 4-go against Gunite, last time out against Zandon, going a mile and an eighth. This is a good spot for him, but he's speed and he's facing other speeds.
Agreed. Yeah, that's the thing that worries me the most about him, but he's going to be a great price. So if you like him, you're not supposed to really worry about what kind of trip he pulls here, Dan. He's going to be a big price. And I'll try to mitigate a couple of those first 2 starts for you this year. Off the layoff at Saratoga, I know he's 3-5. Dead rail in there. They just took a hold of him, sat on the inside. He never got off the rail. It was the worst place to be that day. Big excuse. And then in the 4-go, and I get it, he wasn't going to win that race anyway. Why are you rating him in that race? They were crawling on the lead. He could have easily cleared there. They took a hold and didn't want the front with him. That was the stupidest ride I've ever seen in my life. This horse is good. Man, if I had more guts, I'd have him a lot higher in my picks.
I agree with you. I was kind of leaning towards Pipeline a little bit, but as you see, I went a different direction. We'll take a look at our top selections for the Cigar Mile. You're going with 3 Technique. He's an honest horse. He's getting a little bit more distance. He's going to get a setup, and best of all, he's going to be a price.
Right. I wanted a closer in this race. I wanted a price in this race. And I just feel like 3 Technique is good enough to win, and he's a little bit dirtied up right now, so I'll take a shot.
I wanted a closer in this race. I wanted a price. I'm only going to get 1 out of 2. Senor Buscador, I think, is turning back to a distance that is very attractive to him. He's going to get a setup, and he's had a really good year knocking heads with some solid enough horses on the West Coast. 7253 for Mike, 3258 for me. Good edition of the Cigar Mile on a big afternoon of racing at the Big A on Saturday. Good luck.